ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කළඹන වුවත් Newsfirst, Newsline.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Newsline. Unfortunately, we are not coming to you live today. This is a recorded program because of certain issues that we're facing, especially as far as transport goes in the country right now. But nonetheless, we will continue to keep you up to date on the latest of political unfoldings. And our guest today is, of course, a person who has a very broad understanding and many, many years of experience with the administrative structure of Sri Lanka, and also the most sovereign body of the country that everyone in the country are looking to today for answers to these issues that we are facing. This most sovereign body in the country is none other than the Parliament of Sri Lanka. And our guest this evening is the former Director of Administration of the Parliament of Sri Lanka, Mr. Lacille de Silva. A very good evening, Mr. de Silva, and welcome to the show.
A very good evening to you all. Very good evening.
Mr. de Silva, first things first, there are certain changes that were promised even when former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was in power, when Sri Lanka started going down this deadly spiral. There were promises made that the 20th Amendment will be repealed. There were promises that the 19th Amendment will be brought back. However, during that period where the previous government or the government under Gotabaya Rajapaksa was trying to bring in some sort of an amendment into Parliament in the form of the 22nd Amendment to the Parliament, I believe it was presented by the Justice Minister at the time, Vijayadasa Rajapaksa. Many in the opposition and many people in Sri Lanka said that this is not enough. What has been done isn't enough. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has come forward and also pledged to repeal the 20th Amendment to the Constitution and go back to the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. But still, the Minister of Justice is Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, and to date, we do not have too much of an update on what is happening on that front. What do you think is happening on that front, Mr. Lacille de Silva?
Yeah, it's a good question. Now, over a period of time, there has been all types of agitation with regard to, reforms, I would say. And even the government at different stages spoke of reforms that are needed, particularly after this struggle. The boys started going out against the government, requesting that things need to be put on the track. As you very rightly stated, various, number of them promised all types of made promises. But the biggest problem is, actually now these politicians don't fulfill their promises. It's a case where over a period of time, for several decades, none of the promises have been fulfilled. Now let me go back to Gotabaya. Actually, why did Gotabaya step down? He was not willing to step down, and even the boys who are engaged in the struggle, they said not only Gotabaya, Rajapaksa regime must come down. But unfortunate situation, according to my view, I have a feeling they're not interested in giving up. Now, in a democracy, what is really important? We are governed by a constitution. Now, when you say a constitution, there cannot be a government without transparency, accountability, all that. Now, unfortunate situation is there is a system in Parliament also. They are abusing, I would say, the Constitution to the maximum. Why do I say so? As you know, having made the promises, right, why did they really introduce an amendment to the Constitution to strengthen the powers, actually give more powers to the president? The intention was, he said, that he will be able to deliver, all the promises. But unfortunately, in a country or globally, these three institutions, the three pillars, you can't give, extra powers or strengthen one institution compared to the others. Now, unfortunate situation here in Sri Lanka had been, the executive presidency had been strengthened, and that was done in 1978, having stated that Jayawardena wanted a parliament, wanted a presidency which is not answerable to parliament. Actually, subsequently, in the 19th Amendment also, it was introduced that the president was made accountable to parliament. But the 20th Amendment, 33A, if I remember right, was abolished, where the president was accountable. So it is that under those circumstances only, things have gone completely out of control. So in my view, it is very important at this juncture. You need reforms in all areas. Let me say, in political arena, economic, even in other areas, governance reforms, all that. So whatever said and done, having promised, they have not done anything. Unfortunate situation is it's a crime. There's a crying need in the country to reform because people are suffering so much. Now, even Ranil Wickremesinghe stated, even I have that speech also which he made in Sinhala, basically just a couple of weeks ago in Parliament as the Prime Minister, and he stated in that during the speech, අපත් අපේ රටත් මුහුණ දී තිබෙන තත්ත්වය ගැන ඔබ හැම දෙනාම හොඳින් අවබෝධ කරගෙන ඇති බව මම හිතනවා. මේ තත්ත්වයෙන් යලිත් රට නගා සිටීම සාම්ප්‍රදායික ක්‍රමවලින් බැහැරව අලුත් මාර්ග සොයා ගන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. So the present president had also stated in parliament that you have to think out of the box, and they are not doing that. So which is very important. Unless you think out of the box and find solutions to the issue, there will be no, I mean, we will be going further down to the rock bottom. We have really gone down to the rock bottom. I don't know where we would ultimately end up unless they do all those, changes very much needed in the whole system all over. Unless they do that, we are asking for more trouble in the near future.
Mr. Lacille de Silva, this question, of course, is not about the future of the proceedings that will take place in our country, but a little bit about the past. There were many people who questioned as to why public elected representatives are being allowed or are being mandated to vote at a secret ballot for the position of president when the presidency is left vacant, instead of having a normal division in parliament where the people can see how their public representative or how their representative in parliament has exercised his vote, and if he has done so in line with their wishes. Since you were the Director of Administrations in Parliament, what's your take on this? Why do you think that the Constitution had such a provision to allow for a secret ballot instead of just a transparent ballot?
Now, what I personally think is this. Now, see, can the legislature elect the executive? That's a serious problem in this country. Look at this whole situation, because now you have to keep these three institutions separately. There's a conflict of interest then, right? Now, when you elect, the constitution itself, I think is flawed, because there has been a temporary arrangement made, and if they have to do that in the right way, properly, in the best interest of the country, what they should really do is, there has to be consensus among everybody. Actually, there was so much of underhand, I would say, different types of, I don't know, they say deals or whatever. Now, for that matter, under similar circumstances, when you elect a president, right? Say, now, I want to go to England, because that's the mother parliament. That's where we have finally, adopted this system here in Sri Lanka also. Unfortunate situation is there are allegations about all members of parliament, most of the members of parliament, with regard to their integrity. Now, the same problem cropped up even in England. Boris Johnson, right? There was a huge cry by the members of parliament that he should resign, and that was even during the COVID endemic, right? So it ultimately, they didn't listen to all that. Boris Johnson never listened to that, It came to a situation thereafter, about a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, he made an appointment of, I think, the chief, a whip with regard to managing votes in parliament, right? Unfortunate situation there again, the whip whom he had elected was considered to a man with a bad track record. So the members of parliament objected. Now here in this country, why do they don't look at the track record or about their integrity and all that, right? Now people say almost all of them, and I know personally there are allegations against about a large number of them, right? None of the court cases have been sort of proceeded with. So similar situations, under similar circumstances, there's a big problem. The constitution itself permits really, doesn't permit a clean person to be elected because, as you said, it's a secret ballot. The provision is there only for a secret ballot, and there's no way you can, change the system because that's the law. Unfortunate situation is there is so much, they manipulate so much, and they manipulate so much by so few. This is the biggest problem. So this has caused very, very, serious problems in the country in order to put the whole thing right. My humble feeling, there needs to be a change of parliament. In the sense, they should definitely go for a fresh election. Unless they go for a fresh election, people will not accept. This is not a legitimate government. Let me also say, I'm very sorry to say this, on that basis, I don't even consider the appointment of the Prime President is also a legitimate process, basically. I'm sorry to say it that way,
Mr. De Silva, but whatever said or done, Sri Lanka is in a very precarious situation, and we've only got so many choices left. Every option that we have, or every decision that we make right now, will determine if Sri Lanka will either come out of this crisis or if we will end up as a failed state. So there are those who believe that this administration should be given an opportunity. The very, very basic issues that we're facing right now, because we can't even travel technically, and that's part of the reason why we have to meet online like this and host shows in this manner. So to just solve these basic issues, until these basic issues are solved, the people believe, there are those who believe that this administration should be allowed to govern for a certain period of time. What's your view on this?
If in case there is a failure, say a minister is unable to perform his duties to meet the expected standards, right? Actually, he steps down. Even in other countries globally, right? There have been situations under similar circumstances, right? The government also had resigned. My feeling is we have seen a number of instances even in the past, even prior to say 70s, right? Now that is Seranayake. He said he can't, and he resigned, right? There have been instances like that, even globally. So my thinking is the government machinery, right, has been politicized so much to that extent, right? They are unable to do all that because their intentions are not to serve the masses. Basically, what we need to do, what we understand, but the most of the people, the majority of the masses, they don't understand, right? We have elected a president, even through the parliament, right? We have elected a parliament. Unfortunately, there are the ministers, the cabinet ministers are totally responsible to deliver the services. This is public service delivery, right? If they are not in a position to deliver all that, that means they have failed already, right? If that is the case, they should resign. Now, my argument is, right, there's a cabinet minister. There is, we have the Petroleum Corporation, the Electricity Board, this, that, all that, right? Now, we pay and we maintain all those institutions. They say no money, right? How can they say no money? Because now we buy the petrol, say for cash. I was in the queue from last night, and I came out only around 12, say 1:30 today. So, and we pay cash. We don't buy on credit. Similarly, the biggest problem they have no system, and probably all that what they say is they have no money. I mean, how can they say they have no dollars? Because basically there is money, even a few amount, the sufficient amount of dollars are coming every month, right? The problem is they have not understood what their priorities are. They're not basically doing the right thing. If they are not that kind of people, the biggest problem as leaders, as politicians, as members who are responsible, they are not members. Actually, they have a bigger job. They have a duty. They have a bigger responsibility to perform to ensure that people are not made to suffer in that way. In this way, we are suffering so much. So the biggest problem right now, what we are facing at the moment, is they are not delivering their duties to the section, and they are not capable of delivering all those duties, because now see, there are tender procedures that needs to be adopted, right? They don't stick to all those. And unfortunate situation is there are other requirements. You have to place orders for a couple of months, and in advance they have to arrange all that for a further period like that on an ad hoc basis for a week or so. You shouldn't do that. This is all being done in order to, I know for sure, right? I have been in touch with a number of people. Actually, there is corruption underneath. This, they have basically completely ignored the duties that they have to perform as responsible parliamentarians, as responsible ministers. Unfortunately, the public sector officials are helpless because they are working under, now Article 52 of the Constitution's 52.1 says the secretary is appointed by the president, right? And 52.1, 52.2 says that they shall work under direction and supervision and under the orders of the minister. So this is eventually the situation that they have created right now. If that is the case, we need to totally, at the very beginning you asked me, right? You need reforms, not only political reforms, all the other reforms need to be done. If you can do all that together, you can't postpone anything. You can't say the urgency is only to provide fuel or this, that, or no. You have to provide everything. You have to put the whole thing right at once together. Then only you can really take this country forward. Otherwise, you will never be able to deliver anything. They are basically not doing all that for various other reasons, a hidden agenda. Let me say it that way.
Mr. Lacille de Silva, of course, we'll continue this very interesting discussion after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline. University teachers take to the streets. A message from the Indian Prime Minister to President Wickremesinghe. What did the CID tell MP Sanath Nishanta?
අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට අපි ගියලා අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවෙන් මගෙත් එක කිව්වා. ඒකේ සමහර වෙනම කුටි තියෙනවා ගංජා ගහන කුටි, සමහර කුටි තියෙනවා අයිස් ගහන කුටි, සමහර කුටි තියෙනවා මේ හෙරොයින් ගහන කුටි.
Police visit Galway's protest site. But why? Weekly fuel quota increased.
Citizen journalists, know your rights and limits.
සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාල හරහා පුරවැසි මාධ්‍යකරණයේ නියැලෙන ඔබ දැනුවත් විය යුතු නීතිමය රාමුව අලලා සංවිධාන කෙරෙන විශේෂ වැඩමුළුව අගෝස්තු 7 වනදා අදම ලියාපදිංචි වන්න. විමසීම් 076 388 2111.
Organized by MIM, Maharaja Institute of Management.
Newsfirst, Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. We're in conversation with the former Director of Administration of Parliament, Mr. Lacille de Silva. Mr. Lacille de Silva, we were speaking about the need for urgent reforms, not only economically, but politically, socially, as far as the systems in Sri Lanka goes. There are people who believe that it's not only the political bodies or the politicians who we elect that are corrupt, but there is also massive corruption going on among state sector officials. Now, you yourself are a state sector official. On this front, what would be your response?
Let me say it this way. Now, in 1972, actually, until 72, under the Salisbury Constitution, we had a very strong public sector, and we had an excellent judiciary, right? So after 72 and since 78, it has become we face all types of problems. Even when a person goes to the, say, divisional secretary to get a job done, he has to give a bribe, right? Don't these ministers see all that, right? Can't they see all that? Or at least don't they hear about all that? Actually, they know of all that, right? So because now when they disrupt the whole system, actually, I always recommend that there has to be a very strong public sector. Clean public sector can be made only if you depoliticize the whole system, right? Actually, now there are secretaries who have been accused of corruption. Didn't the minister concerned know about all that, right? So my feeling is now, particularly this article, I will read that out for you, 52.2. I think that when you quote the Constitution in its, you read it out, I think that will be the best thing. 52.2. The Secretary of the Ministry shall, subject to the direction and control of the Minister, exercise supervision over the departments, government, or other institution in the charge of his minister. So naturally, when the Secretary is appointed by the President, right? When the Minister gives the directions, we know basically all what happened. Now, from the time this government came to power, we saw this sugar fraud, right? So many issues. Unfortunate situation is, why have the relevant minister or even the cabinet minister taken action, the president taken action against them? They are part and parcel of the whole thing. I will tell you exactly without any fear or favor. I mean, this is basically a creation, and if you can put the whole thing right now, to tell you another again, in 2015, when the Presidential Commission was appointed, right, we went into investigations, and we had taken decisions even to summon the then President, Mahinda Rajapaksa, all of them. Actually, the public sector, they were very scared, and they thought it is better not to get involved in corrupt practices, right? How did Ranil Wickremesinghe interpret that? Ranil said during that period as Prime Minister, he said the public sector is crumbling down. Public sector is crumbling down because the commissions are summoning all the public officers, senior officers and all that, right? Then the media asked me, why do you summon? I said, if there are allegations, you need to summon them, investigate all that, right? And the then Prime Minister in his speech he said, I will have to take the matter up with the President, the then President, right? And finally, having taken up the matter with the President, what did they do? They removed all of us, right? So naturally, the root cause is all these politicians are utterly corrupt. We want a set of clean politicians. If you have a set of clean politicians, together with these, constitutional functions, etc., removed. Now, the 20th Amendment again, right? All that has to be removed. Now, Montesquieu principles, basically where all these institutions. Furthermore, being a Commonwealth country, there's a thing called Latimer House principles. That's all about the independence, right? Now, even the auditing was denied after the 20th Amendment. This is public money. Abdul Kalam, the president of India, once had said, you have to look after public money like, your property. And if you don't do that, you're asking for trouble. Actually, that is the problem. That is what we are facing, right? We are in trouble because we have not looked after public money. I will tell you one other story. I told Mr. Anureapa long years ago after 2010 election, they opened up actually the doors for others in other parties to come in. Having opened up doors, we had more than 100, say half the parliament were ministers, deputy ministers and all that. I had a chat then with Andrew Appa and said, we are going to end up in trouble one day because we are spending more than what we can. Now, that was another matter that was quoted year after year by even the World Bank and all that. They referred to it as a twin deficit. Our current account, actually, our imports are more than the exports. So there's a huge problem, right? And that's one problem. And the other biggest problem is we have not looked after, or we have a top-heavy government. Why? Because all these, unfortunately, so many departments or ministries, we have to cut down all that. Can't they do all that now? Even now, they are wasting so much of public money without any consideration whatsoever. This is very bad. Unfortunately, this is again creating added problems to this country. So like what you asked me, why are public officers cut? Now, probably they may be hand in glove with them. But if you remove all those whatever provisions where they can manipulate, where the public officers could be manipulated by the politician, they will fall in line. And I'm sure we have once proved that it is possible to a great extent, unless you give independence to the public officer, without keeping them under whatever. Now, even in parliament, right, it has become a rubber seal. Why? President, right? Now, there was a time even presidents were whatever accused of corruption and all that, right? And there are two different situations. Unfortunately, the president gets immunity. So these systems have to be removed. Justice should be there equally to everybody. Everybody should be dealt with efficiently if in case there is corruption, right? So if you could do that, there won't be corruption in the public sector. But to deal with that, I think you have to start from the top,
Mr. De Silva, are you hopeful that the changes that were promised, especially as far as the constitutional amendments go, would make its way through in Parliament, at least before the end of this year?
Actually, if they could do that, I think they will be doing something in favor of the people, in favor of the country, for the benefit of the people, right? For the betterment of for our own good. They are not going to do that. They will never. They are not going to make those constitutional amendments because they don't want the judiciary to be independent. They don't want the public sector to be independent, right? They want all that under their control. When the whole thing is under their control only, ultimately they can, make hay while the sun shines. That's what happens here in Sri Lanka. That culture needs to be changed. I think the boys in the struggle, that's what they are struggling for, and they should be given justice. What I personally think is, it's high time to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lacille de Silva. The sad part, of course, judging by everything that you said, is the fact that the world kept on warning Sri Lanka that we will be heading here. The people in the country, or a certain group of people in the country, kept on warning the rest of their brothers and sisters of this country that this is where we are headed. They kept on warning the leadership of the country that this is where we are headed, but nobody listened. But today, when we are in this situation and when people can see for real how bad the situation truly is, then everybody rises up. But there is an old saying that goes, better late than never. Right. That's just a few words of consolation, at least as far as the situation of our country goes. We will continue to bring you the latest of information from the political arena during this very crucial time period. Thank you very much, Mr. Lacille de Silva, for joining us on our show. Thank you very much for all our viewers out there for tuning in. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, take care and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Newsfirst, Newsline.